One of the things I did is remove the railings that were along the side of the stairs, so on both sides. And what I did is I trimmed the edges on a rip saw and then used circular saw to give fresh edges to these two sides and these three sides, and then I ran it through the planer on both sides to flatten it out and strip the old paint off. And I did that on both of them. And now what I'm doing, since all the cuts and planing are fresh, I'm putting cut and treat wood preservative on it. And then after that, what I'll do is paint them before I put them back on. I did have to remove the screws from the bottom of the balusters in order to put the deck boards in. So since I do have the balusters out of the way, I decided to paint this board on the bottom all the way around. And I'll get that as well. What I'm also going to do is, once this is all dry, I'm going to reattach the balusters at the bottom, and then these horizontal boards all the way around, over here and over there, are all going to be removed and replaced with these boards here, and then these two right here are the ones for the stairs. This is my, it's kind of hard to show it with all the balusters all crooked, but this will help me keep the proper spacing on the top and bottom between all of the balusters as I go down, just to confirm that they are in the right place. And I believe it's 3.5 inches space between each baluster. What I also did is up underneath the door over here, I added I think it was 1 7/8 inch composite deck board, but I put it sideways up under the threshold of the door because the threshold does need support. Otherwise that metal piece on the bottom is going to keep on bending and flexing. So by putting the composite deck board under there, it matches the rest of the deck and it supports the threshold on the door. One more thing I'm going to do after all the painting is done. Well, I do have to replace some balusters because some of them are pretty severely cracked. So I bought a pack of them. I'm not sure exactly how many come in a pack. It's like 16 of them. And I'll get some of those painted up and replace the ones. There were 3 of them that were completely broke, and then there's some with cracks, so I'll replace those. But back to the last thing that I'm going to do, and that is I am going to cut these off, because since we've been here, I've probably painted these in the last 4 years. I've painted them 3 or 4 times, and they just keep softening up, and then I've filled them with Bondo, repainted them, and then they get all soft and crack up again, like this one right here. This one has like a shell on it, but these are going to be chopped off, and we're just going to put some 5.5 by 5.5 black caps over these. Well, cut them off and then put the caps on, and that'll keep the rain from penetrating into the wood and causing further damage in the wood. Go ahead and put my handy 3.5 inch spacer. It spaces both the top and the bottom. Put my baluster on, make sure it's where it needs to be. whenever I get something like this, where you get this huge gap, it just means that a lot of debris, leaves and pine needles and dirt is all going to get in there. So the best way to close that up so it doesn't do that is reverse it. And as soon as you reverse it, put it back forward, and it will press the wood up against this other one more easily. I went through all the balusters and found quite a few that look like bananas, or ready to be used as a bow. So those have come out, and I'm going to replace them. I'm not even sure how many I pulled off, but I've already put 4 new ones on, and I've got 2 on this side that need to be replaced. Doesn't look like any on this front part yet, but there will probably be some over on that side over there. In fact, there was 2 broken ones, so I know those are going to be replaced. Alright, so I have one more that needs to go here, and then I've got that one side to finish, and then this whole project will be finished except for touch-up paint, because some of these balusters didn't go back in the same spots, and I think they were in spots where it was impossible to paint, because you can see like this one here has no paint on this side, so it's not where it originally was. It didn't get painted. And then I'll go around and see if there's anything else that needs to get painted as well. It seems like every time I paint, it rains, or it rains and then I can't paint one way or the other. These are new balusters that were painted earlier. There's 2 ways I can prep these. One, I can use a countersink bit, which is good for drilling the hole and then also leaving space for the head of the screw to sit. And then there's also another way that you can do this. I want to put my holes about 1 inch and a half up on both ends, and the way you can do this so that you don't split the wood is, one, you can use a countersink bit or just use a regular drill bit and then sink the head in, but you run the issue of splitting the wood. And then there's another way that you can do this, and I don't know who told me about this, but it was years ago, and this is what you do in order to prevent splitting the wood, is you put your screw where you want it, and I've got it about 1 inch and a half, and I have a crappy screw, so that's not going to work. Let me find another screw. Alright, using a Torx screw, what I'm going to do is I am going to start it. So I'm just going to start it a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse it while holding it in place. And I'm going to wait until I see some smoke. Sometimes you're going to hold it. Unfortunately, holding it causes friction, but if you hold it there for a while, it'll basically burn that spot, and then the wood won't crack. When I've done this, I've never had a piece of wood split or crack like it normally would by doing this. So it's just a technique. There are only 2 things left to be done on the deck. One is touching up the paint on some of the balusters, and then in some other spot where the balusters didn't go back in the same exact spot. So you end up with things like that where it's not painted. Touch-up paint will be done. A lot of painting was done, but touch-up paint will be done. And then sometime tomorrow, we're supposed to get our black metal caps. So these will be cut off and black caps will be put on. So for right now, the composite decking color is a slightly lighter brown than the rest of the deck, but eventually that'll get to the point where it'll pretty much match, probably after we decide to use the rest of the deck paint that we have, because we do still have some. We'll finish using that, and then we'll take a sample of the composite deck wood in and have the paint match to it, and then the top will be the same as the bottom. But I think it looks okay with the contrast between the top color, the decking color, and then this darker, I think it's called cafe or cocoa or something, not 100% sure, but just good contrast between the colors. I do need to change that one out. That was looking pretty rough. It actually cracked while I was tightening the screw, so that one will get changed out. All in all, the deck is pretty solid. It doesn't have much bounce in it, especially since in the steps I added the additional stringers, the additional 2 stringers, so there's not a lot of flex in the steps like there used to be. And then also up in there used to be a lot of bounce and flex. That's gone. Overall, the deck is pretty solid. Something else to point out when I was painting is the ends, or anywhere that you cut, are going to be a gray color. And what I did is I painted this edge to hopefully blend it in more with the rest of the deck. But time will only tell whether it's going to stay there. If it gets hot, is it just going to peel off, or what is it going to do? So see what happens with that. But I did go around and paint all those edges to try to get it to blend in. When I first started doing the railings, my intent for the stairway railings was I was just gonna the top portion down and then the bottom portion, and then run it through the planer to get the sides smooth. But by the time I got done and painted them, they're actually right here. They look okay, but you can see a lot of cracks from sun damage. So these were the original ones. They don't look too bad, but since I was replacing the rest of the top rails, I decided to go ahead and buy new wood for the stair rails. So all of the rails, both the top rails and the stair rails, is all new wood. Some of the balusters are new. None of the posts are new. 2 of the stringers are new. And then there was some sister wood or scabbing wood that was used to reinforce the framing of the deck. Most of the screws for the balusters were reused, but in some cases the heads were torn up pretty bad. But there is a mix-up of both Torx and cross-tip screws all over this thing. When I could, I used Torx screws as much as possible until I actually ran out.